musician, graduate of the University of New Mexico with a degree in psychology and a BA in music. She is one of the founders and the drummer for Mango Cakes. Welcome, Tina Marquez, to OTP.
How you doing, Tina? It's good to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. You've been quite busy since the last time I saw you.
Yeah, a little bit, a little bit.
Yeah, that's great. So, Tina, tell our listeners a little bit about you. How did you start playing on your instrument? I deliberately didn't say what instrument you play. Talk about what instrument you play and how you got into playing music.
So I'm a percussionist, like slash drummer, I guess you would say.
Mhm.
And when I was about like 8 years old, I want to say, we went to San Antonio for like a little family vacation, and we went to the Selena Museum, and her sister, the drummer, was there, Suzette, and I met her, and
Oh,
uh,
yeah.
I was like thinking. I remember I was like debating. Like I knew I wanted to play something. I was just a little kid, and I couldn't decide if I wanted to play like guitar or drums. And then when I met her, I just like told my parents I wanted to play drums. So I came back, and they just got me a little kit and got me
Right.
lessons with Jay
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
Jay Blade.
Right. Right. Now, what was your parents? What were your parents' reaction when you said drums?
Um,
Do you
I
remember at
it
all?
was probably a shock that like why drums, but I also think like since they aren't musicians, they didn't really know, so they just did it. Like
Okay.
I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
think most kids get like a drum set as soon as they say they want to play drums, but I was definitely lucky enough to.
Right.
So
Right. Yeah. You mentioned Suzette. She's the drummer. Was the drummer for
for
Celine's?
Selena, yeah,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
the singer. So
Right. Talk about how she inspired you. What touched your heart about that?
um I mean, I like to be completely honest, just growing up watching the movie was one
Yeah.
of my favorite movies, just kind of seeing their like rise to stardom. And
Hmm.
um I think it was like they actually made like a new Selena series, and it
Right.
was like it kind of talked about how Suzette may not be like the best drummer, but she was like the drummer for like the best drummer for Selena, and like that kind of
Yeah.
that definitely stuck with me a little bit.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, not necessarily like I grew up with that style or anything, but just seeing a female do it is what pushed me, I guess.
Yeah. You got me in that direction. Did you ever feel as a young lady intimidated and hesitant about moving into that direction because you were a young lady and unfortunately dominated by males? Talk about that.
Um, I feel like maybe in high school it was like intimidating as like a little freshman trying to get on the drum line and stuff like that.
Right.
Um, I don't. I would say like I don't really think about it like as much as probably other people do. Like a
Hmm.
lot, I know a lot of people like point out, "Oh, a girl drummer, that's so rare. Only there's only like three of you guys in town or whatever." But I like it. Honestly, doesn't even cross my mind like
Cool.
most times. I don't know. Maybe just because I'm used to it, or just because for me it's just playing drums. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you just go and do your thing,
Hmm.
you know. And it all starts to, and it's the great thing about music in my mind is that it all starts to melt away a little bit after they hear you play.
Right?
You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, right on. So, okay, so now you get into school and you're in high school. Tell us a little bit about your experience in high school. Where'd you go?
So I went to Monzano High School,
Mm,
and I was pretty big into the drumline stuff. I loved it. All of my best friends were on drumline. Like
mm,
honestly, from high school, those are like still the only people I talk to. Um, and then I was also in the jazz bands, did like jazz all state and all that.
mhm.
I was in the guitar program, even did like guitar all state for a year, and I was also like doing like a little rock trio or quartet at the time.
Cool.
And like our dads would like book us at the state fair and stuff like that. So I was probably like the only kid doing like that kind of stuff.
Right.
But yeah, really, I would say that's like where I was like super like into practicing and very competitive because it's just what we did and we had a blast with it.
Right. Right. You know, it has been my experience, especially for youngsters, that they either absorb the music, they get into it, they digest it, and it becomes a part of their life, or some of us at that age immediately just say, okay, I'm going to go sports or what have you.
Right.
And it became part of your DNA and you took it off into college, correct?
Right. Yeah. So I did go into college. I think I don't even think I had like a major when I first started, but
Mhm.
like immediately right off the bat, I was like on the drum line, in the jazz ensembles, in the combos. And
Mhm.
then I remember my second semester, I decided to actually like declare it a major. And then all of a sudden, I was in the wind symphony and even more stuff and percussion ensembles. So it just kind of kept like piling on for me. Um,
Yeah, at that point, I want to talk a little bit about this because I've in my teaching career, I noticed. Did you get overwhelmed? Because sometimes I noticed that students that play very well and they have a lot of different ensembles that they're in, it can be kind of overwhelming and have a impact on their drive to keep playing. How did you feel with all of that? I mean, did you absorb it and it was okay, or did it give you just overwhelming feeling?
So I think I was definitely overwhelmed. Firstly, like percussion is such like a vast instrument at the
Hmm.
collegiate level, and I at least I'm sure there's been other percussionists in my spot, but at least like in my class, I guess you would say like the kids, basically all the other undergrads,
Hmm.
like no one was really doing what I was doing. Like I was the center snare for the drum line. I was like being requested at the sound pack games. Somehow I was like in the wind symphony and I hadn't even played concert band in high school. So that was like a culture shock. And then
Right.
I was in uh the top jazz band and then I was also in percussion ensemble like but
Yeah.
at the same time I was like also in theory and aural lab and growing up a drum set player that's also completely like foreign so
Yeah.
it was rough on me just because I was like spread out through so many things, but at
Mhm.
like a high level of everything.
Sure.
So it was
Sure.
like a ton of pressure, for sure.
So talk about that experience in college. You went into, you're getting absorbed, you're in the ocean of music going on. Some of us may say that's exactly what you need to just bombard you and have you have this pressure. Talk about that experience. I mean, did it lead to where as you went forward?
So even though I don't like necessarily use a lot of that stuff now, I guess
Hmm.
like one thing I'll never discredit is like the discipline it gave me.
Right on.
Um, I never like, of course, you have to work with a bunch of people that you may not want to work with. You have to be in long rehearsals that you may not want to be at. You have to prepare for stuff, or else you're the one that looks like a jerk. At least in my
Right.
opinion.
Yeah.
Um, so there were like a lot of amazing takeaways in that sense. And then I mean, New Mexico is so small, like that also of course gave me connections to that sort of
Mm.
side of the music community.
Right.
Um, and I mean, like now it does help because like even in like my band, like I could be like, oh, like because there are like mixtures of musicians as I'm learning, as I'm
Right.
digging. There's like
Yeah.
there are the people that just grew up in church and can't read like a single note.
Right.
And then
Right.
there are the orchestral people, and a lot of times those fuse. So I find myself kind of being like the middle person, a
Yeah.
lot, like kind of being the translator almost. Um,
Exactly. Yeah.
so yeah, it did help in those senses, I guess. Like I would never not do it. I'm glad I went through all of those things.
Right.
And I think it only led me to like find what I'm like more passionate about and
Right.
like really examine what I wanted to do with drumming, like at least at this point.
Sure. Sure.
Hmm.
It opened. It opened your mind. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. to where you wanted, what direction you wanted to go. And one of those directions, if correct me if I'm wrong, was that you changed your major.
Right. Yeah.
That must have been a huge decision.
It was. And I think at the end of the day, I realized that just because I was changing my major didn't mean I wasn't a drummer anymore, or that I couldn't take this to wherever I wanted to take it. So I think that's kind of what helped me.
Right.
I just realized that it wasn't as big of a deal as I was maybe making it seem.
Right.
But yeah.
Did you ever think that you were going to leave music at that point or drop playing?
No, I actually I don't think I ever thought that. Like the biggest
Good.
thing was, okay, if you're not a music ed major, if you ever do want to teach down the road, you're gonna have to work harder to get teaching certificates and stuff. But that was
Right.
really the only thing
Yeah.
that I felt I was losing.
Right.
Because even when I did change my major, like I was still in Jazz 1. I was able to quit Wind Symphony. I was able to not be in marching. Like, so it was like stuff like that. And I was glad that they still wanted me involved and to play if I wanted to.
Right. They gave you some flexibility.
Yeah, they did. And
Right.
I'm thankful for that for sure.
Right. Right. So tell us now, lead us through your musical journey of what happened then after you left college, you got your degree and you're moving on.
So, okay, let's see.
You're
So,
not as old as I. Your memory is
I
still
know,
there.
I know. So basically, I left for like drum corps in
Oh,
the
okay.
summer of 2019. And that's when I came back and realized like there was a bunch of other things I could be doing. And I remember like getting back and literally going to the counselor's office like the next day and changing.
Oh,
And then so I had a semester of like psychology and I was still doing like jazz band. So it was fun. And then at that time is when I had more time and I started jamming with people outside of college
there you go.
because I had the time to. And that kind of started like formation of our band, the Mango Cakes. So we started jamming and then all of a sudden the pandemic hit. So everything was like closed. I was finishing my last year online, which really felt like
Yeah.
I was not really, I don't know. I just felt like I wasn't trying for sure.
Right.
But so I was just practicing a lot. And as everything was shut down, I was just like thinking like, man, I hope that we could keep this band together and keep like working at it. And hopefully maybe if things ever open up again, we could just hit the ground running.
Right.
And so like through the pandemic, I was just like, I would be working on my chops and
right.
just like really just trying to develop more as a drummer since I had the time to. And then we would keep practicing on and off when it was like safer, I guess. We'd
Sure.
like spread out real big in my garage. And
Right.
then, so as soon as things started to open up, Sawmill offered us like a residency.
Oh,
And
cool.
so every Sunday we had to play for 3 hours.
Oh, yeah.
And that is like by far where my playing just like took off for
Right.
sure. Because I had to learn how to like really drum for 3
Yeah.
hours. We had to
Yeah.
put together 3 hours of music.
Yeah.
And then a few months later, we started like, it was just so fast. Then we started playing casinos and then weddings. And it was like, it just
Took
exposed
off.
me. Yeah, it was like it's like how you have your jazz standards growing up. Like
Right.
that whole thing is like a whole different,
Yeah.
it's like a category of like
Right.
dance music. So it
Right.
just like developed all of our pockets and like
Right.
just that
Yeah.
sort of thing. And that was right after I graduated.
Let me back you up a little bit because I want you to talk about the you putting together and constructing the band itself. How did that come about? Who did you work with, and how did that
Okay.
materialize?
So right when I got back from drum corps, I started playing in this band called I think we were called like Jonah and the Jets. And Jonah decided to quit the band and he was like the singer and it was all of his music. And the rest of us were like, dang, we still kind of want to keep playing. Like the couple little shows we did were kind of fun.
Right.
And so we got a different singer and we were like, oh, we should try to add a horn section. Oh, we should try to find a keys player. So like through all of our different sort of like circles, we ended up forming a group.
Okay.
And that's kind of how we started working on a set. Guaranteed, that first group, the only people left are me and the bass player.
Oh, okay.
But at the same time, like, then just little by little, like people's
Sure.
things happen.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. People in and
like,
out.
yeah, we had a couple guitarists. Their like musical, I
Uh,
guess, goals just didn't align with ours, just
sure.
stylistically. And we've even had like our lead singer, we had to change vocalists
Oh,
probably only like 6 months ago. So I
okay.
mean, we've just been. It's
Yeah.
definitely become more of a system, but the
Yeah.
current squad we have right now is probably like the tightest it's ever been. So
That's cool.
it's pretty cool.
I gotta ask you this though. Where'd you get the name?
The mango cakes.
Yeah.
Well, so our bass player is from the Philippines,
Oh,
and like
cool.
our first group chat, he named it something like the something mango cakes, and we
Mm.
went to a jam session to play like the only song we had written, and we had the guy hosting the jam session. We had him just announce this as the mango cakes, and
Okay, went on from there.
yeah, we didn't want to be one of those bands that took forever to overanalyze a name or anything. It was like,
Right on.
and I'm surprised how much it's stuck. To be honest.
It's original. It's original.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I have a clip here. Is it okay? I can play this for you now?
Sure.
Yeah, let's play it. I'll play it and then I'll bring it down. You can sort of narrate over it.
Cool.
All right. Tell us a little bit about that live
So
performance.
so I believe that was like at a Launchpad show or something. And so this was a few months after our first lead singer and us had split up. And
Oh, okay.
so that clip is like the first song we wrote. We had Amanda from Red Light Cameras like be our singer for like the summer.
Okay.
We knew she wouldn't be permanent, but me and Jabez, the bass player, we just admire her stage presence and her energy so much. We
Right
just
on.
felt like being like having someone like that on our stage, like the rest of us couldn't like fake anything. Like we had to match her energy, and
Sure.
so that was actually like our first song we wrote, and she wrote it with us.
Okay.
And so that is like an original song, and that was at like her birthday show. So yeah, and there's even like the setup in that video was something new that we've been doing, is like where my drums come to the front, the bass
Right.
is in the front, which normally like in an original setting we're in the back,
Right.
but
Right.
since it's kind of me and the bass players thing, it's us in the front and whoever we have singing in the middle. So
Cool.
that's kind of why I chose that clip, because kind of
Yeah.
is like showing the new version of us.
Yeah. Right on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds good. And let's get into your creativity of writing your music. I mean, how are you, for our listeners that are listening, how are you taking your creativity and the band's creativity and trying to reach your audience? You told me a little bit you want to keep them on your feet. Talk about that energy that you were explaining.
So one of the things that I think we've like gotten known for over the past like year or so that we've been around is like we're like a cover band. But
Right.
at the same time, like even though that we have been doing all these covers, I mean obviously as soon as you get into the casino like wedding circuit, it kind of puts you in that trap of playing covers. And it
Right.
definitely limits your creativity, and it's like, oh, we don't have time to write a song because we have this big wedding coming up that we need to make sure everyone's on the same page for.
Right.
So we've been kind of trying to take a step back from that sort of stuff. And really the past few months has just been like trying to figure out like how do we write and get 10 people on the same page, which can be hard when the two leaders are the bass player and the drummer, where like
Right.
melodies don't come easy to us.
Right.
There's not like a chord instrument there.
Yeah.
So it's definitely been interesting and like still a learning process for sure.
Sure.
So we've kind of had to separate it into this sort of idea of demos,
Hmm.
and where we'll like maybe lay out a foundation, and hopefully one of our singers will come through and be willing to work on melodies. But at the same time, since it's such a big group and everyone is so busy, it takes a village. So we're even reaching to,
Right.
there's people outside of the band that are like, hey, I've had this song for the past few years now, and I think you guys would sound great with it. Like, here's this
Sure.
demo if you want to check it out. Or,
Right.
oh, you guys don't know how to use Ableton and all these loops. Like, let me come over and let me teach you how to
Right.
do this. Or we've just had so much help. So
That's
it
cool.
really, yeah, it's really a blessing. And I think we're just trying to learn from as much people as we can right now.
Right.
But right now it is like that slow process of, okay, we have the form and the groove of this song. Let's get a
Right.
singer in here and see what they could do. Or, okay, now that we have all this, like, we really need like some sort of hook with the horns right here. Like, what
Right.
can you guys do to this? Or sometimes it'll even just be us on like a little pad, like programming the horns. Or
Right.
we're
Right.
still so like, we feel like babies.
You just
Like,
just
you're just
knew.
trying to figure it out. Yeah. Just
And
really
you,
trying to figure it out.
I love this because from the outside looking in, it's almost like you're seeing a birth
Yeah.
of this music, this group that you don't know where it's going to go, but it's the love that you guys have to play. Money's good.
Mhm.
You always
Yeah.
could use the cash.
Oh, yeah.
But you guys putting this together, and it's the love that you all have in the band. And bands come in and out, people come in and
Right.
out of
Oh,
bands,
yeah.
but you've got that foundation, the
Right.
nucleus in there, and
Yes.
that's great. And it sounds like you're open, your minds are open to
Yeah.
absorb all of this. And the other thing I like about what you've told me, Tina, we're talking to Tina Marquez with about the mango cakes and her career on OTP. And what I love about this, Tina, is your positivity. You've got a positive mind with your playing. Talk a little bit about that with the listeners, because some of our listeners may not have um, tried an instrument yet. May want to play drums, may want to play sax, want to play music. There's fear involved. Talk about how you fought your way through that.
So I think like one of my biggest sort of uh like walls I sort of had to like climb, or whatever you want to call it, was
Mm,
I was always like so in my head, like comparing myself to other
yeah,
players in town.
right on.
And I feel like without a doubt, like when you have anxiety, or when you're a little scared, or you're just not confident, like it comes through and you're playing so much.
Right,
And so I don't know what it was within like the past year or so that finally clicked, where I was like, wait, you're literally not built like these other guys that you're comparing yourself to. Like, physically,
yeah,
there's no way that you'll ever sound like them. But at
right.
the same time, physically, like technically, there's no way they'll ever sound like you.
That's
And
right.
like literally, your hands are different sizes, you weigh different, like you look
Right,
different, you move
right.
different.
Yeah,
Like, when you like break it down to that level, I was like, oh,
yeah,
so I'm never gonna sound like them. So why am I trying?
right.
I might as well just do the things that I do really well, even
Yeah,
better,
yeah,
and they're never gonna sound like me.
right.
And
Yeah,
it
yeah.
kind of took that for me to
To
start to
open
get
it.
a little bit more confident. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
And that's the beauty about music is if you look at different artists and the music that's out there, it's all different. I
yeah.
mean, and it comes from the different type of performers and people that create the music, wrote it. That that's the beauty of music. It's
Right.
all a smorgasbord of music out there. That's right. But
Yeah.
it took you a while to get through that balloon.
Oh, most definitely. And then especially me listening to other people just analyzing everything, it was like, I don't know. I guess it was just something I struggled with for a long time without really realizing it, maybe.
Sure. Yeah.
Um, but
Yeah.
now I just like have just a way different outlook on it.
Right. You
Um,
freed yourself.
Somehow, yeah. I was like, why are you trying to have all these gospel chops when you didn't grow up
Yeah.
doing that? And
Right.
it'll
Right.
probably never you're never going to feel as natural as trying to
Yeah.
force that through you than if you're trying to force what you grew up doing. Or,
That's
you
it.
could always work at stuff to get better, sure, but if
Right.
it's like not in your heart, it's not going to come,
Yeah.
it's not going to come out.
That, I find that with horn players, sax mainly. I mean, you got some guys that come up and you've got to do bebop. You've got to do this.
Right.
And if you're not doing that, then you're not accepted, in the world, in the
Right.
scheme of things. And you really have to keep your eyes on the prize there. And that's what you've been doing. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, let's go back to the band real quick and about um, what are your plans now, and what do you see you guys doing in the future?
So, I mean, the lead singer switch was like a pretty big like thing that we had to get through. But now that I feel like we have like a solid group, it is really focusing on writing, and
Mm,
we're actually like we've been like how I said we have open minds. We've been reading some books on like how to put together like the ideal show and sort
right.
of like create moments. So I think really what we are trying to do is as we keep building this show, pull out more covers and keep putting them in with, hopefully our
Mhm,
originals, but
right.
really just like creating these moments like an experience for people to I don't
To-
know, we just like for example, we had this show on November 5th at Marble and it was a huge probably one of our biggest crowds we've had, but
uh,
we like being the bass player were like up one night like reading this book like okay we need like a touching moment, we need like a relatable moment, and it worked. We like specifically planned out these things and we had people in the crowd coming up like I loved when like the lights went out and there was just a trombone on the stage like playing Al Green, or like
yeah.
we just tried to create stuff like that that's a little bit different even if we
Right.
are doing covers.
Right.
I guess really just trying to make people feel something when they watch us.
Yeah.
um, I'm
Yeah.
sure that recording and releasing is going to be a whole new again, we're like not going to know how to do that, but
Yeah. That's all right. That's
it's
all right.
learning, yeah, for
That's
sure.
what it's all about. You want to set that mood and give the people the feeling that
Yes.
you're trying to transfer, and
Yeah.
that's difficult.
Yep.
I mean, all of this, but what I love about what you're doing, Tina, and your group is that you guys have that love for music. And if you keep the eyes on the prize, I know you're going to be just doing great things with your music. And it's going to be fun watching you develop and
Yeah,
continue.
it's exciting. It's a
Mhm.
we always say it's a blessing and a curse because everyone is in that band is so good that
Right.
like I mean we all are like getting calls all the time to like go in different direct like you know what I mean.
Sure.
People just trying to hire you for whatever. So it's definitely hard to keep it together, but um I'm pretty proud we've had like pretty much the same squad for the past like at
Right.
least over a year now. So
Cool. Yeah.
it's
You
cool to
know,
see.
you mentioned that because, you, and correct me if I'm wrong, your group is relatively young.
Yeah, I think our oldest member just turned 30.
Okay.
Like
There you
granted sometimes we have older guys sit in, but like as far
right.
as like in the band our oldest member just turned 30
Yeah, there you go. So,
and our youngest is 9 maybe 20. I think he's
okay.
20 now.
Yeah. And so, sometimes life gets in the way, people move away and all that kind
Yep.
of stuff, but you guys have the guts to really morph. The band has to morph to the different changes that you
Right.
have, and that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
Talk to our listeners before we close off about, how, if you are young or older or middle in age, about the passion of music and how to get started. What would be some of your advice to those that are listening that may have that fear about starting or going back to playing? What's up with that?
I mean, I would say just go for it because no one, well, I mean, or maybe I just tell myself this, but no one is really watching you and thinks how you think. Like, do people know that I'm kind of scared on stage playing a certain song? No, probably not.
Yeah.
But also just like you just have to do what like feels honest and true to you, really. If
Right.
you like, and that's with really anything, if
Right.
you're in a band and you don't like going to practices, then quit. Or to me, it's that simple to keep yourself happy with music, at least. You just have to stay to what's honest and true, because if not, that's how you get burnt out.
There you go.
Yeah.
I call it getting sour.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
you get, you get all these, negative vibes, and I've gone through it myself, and still fight the feeling of that, and
Yeah.
you get sour. And like you said, man, it's nobody knows what's inside the demons in your head
No, not at all.
except yourself.
Right. Yeah. Most definitely.
Yeah. There you
Yeah.
go. Well, look, Tina, we love you so much. You're true and blue here in Albuquerque, and we're just enjoying seeing you and your band go forward in this world of digital and media and Facebook and everything. Even if sometimes we don't make the gigs, we can see what's happening
Right.
through the
Yeah.
posts and all that.
That's
And
why I
so,
try to post. That's why I
yeah,
try.
absolutely. So keep doing what you're doing, and keep fighting the fight, staying positive. Tell your band that we love them so much,
I
and
will.
we'll let you know when this comes out. We also love our
Awesome.
listeners. We want to thank our listeners for supporting the podcast. Of course, again, you can find us Spotify, iTunes, all the podcast platforms. And Tina and I want to tell you right now, go out and try to play all the right
Yeah.
notes.
Try to play the right notes.
There you go.
You've been listening to The Podium. If you would like to be a guest on The Podium, email the show at onthe-podium2@gmail.com. That's ONTHEPODIUM TOO @gmail.com.